We are here to celebrate the work of Bridgett Davis. Did I pronounce
That's so beautiful.
Bridgett. I've been practicing my French. I have. Shout out to Pimsleur. And we're going to have a conversation about this gorgeous work. And I just want to start by saying welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome. Have you been to Philadelphia before?
I've been to Philly before. I used to live here briefly.
Oh, did you?
When I was a young woman. Yeah, we were riding
You're
here
so
in the
young.
lift and going along Lincoln Drive, and I was like, I'm having flashbacks.
Yes.
I used to take Kelly Drive to get to work. That was not the fun part.
Yeah, but spring likes you because the fact that you're here and the weather, yeah.
Those things I liked about Philly.
Yeah.
You know, the weather, the
So-
park. But, you asked a question though.
No, I hadn't.
Oh.
So this book is gorgeous, and I love. Let's start here. It's you explained in the book why you decided you were going to write the book.
Yeah.
But I would love for you to have some room to expound upon
Right.
it, because
Yeah.
secrecy is like what snitches get stitches. Is
Exactly.
that?
Or as my mother used to say, no good can come from you running your mouth. I believed her. I believed her for decades.
Yeah.
Yeah, I took it seriously. It was a secret that I just knew to keep. And even as I got older and there was no real reason to keep it, because not only, were lotteries now legal, but also my mom died in 1992.
Yeah.
Long time ago. And
Yeah.
even after that, I just never told anyone. I told
What about
no
your
one.
siblings?
Well, they all knew. Like that, everyone shared. The family knew.
No, I mean, they didn't say anything either.
No one ever told. No one ever told.
Wow.
And so this thing happened to me, I remember my son was 10. It was like 9 years ago. And he looked at this photo of my mom on the nightstand, like, on the little side table. And he just said so innocently to me, he just said, Mom, what was she like? And I said, oh, she was amazing. But my heart was sinking, like just breaking. Because it hit me that I had kept her secret so well that I had kept her a secret from my own children.
Yeah.
And that just messed me up.
Yeah.
And I made a vow then. I thought, okay, listen, this has to stop. I'm not going to be afraid anymore of sharing this story because I'm proud of my mother. And I now have a real inspiration. I want my children to know who she was. And I literally, that year, I flew to Detroit and I sat down with my mom's remaining sister. She was having her 80th birthday. And I said to her, Aunt Florence, I don't know how you feel about this, but would you mind if I wrote about my mom? Would you mind if I wrote about Fannie being in the numbers? I was so nervous. I thought, if she says no, I won't do it.
Okay.
And she said to me, oh, honey, I'm going to help you tell that story.
Yes.
Because what your mama did was unheard of. And people ought to know. And I was like, okay, let's do this. And then she's like, listen, I know that Fannie made sure you didn't have to know anything about the numbers. I know you don't understand them. I was like, yeah, I really don't. She's like, I'm going to help you tell it. I'm going to explain everything to you. I'm going to tell you what it was. So I was like, whew, okay, I have no more excuses.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and I started then, believe it or not, all those years ago.
Yeah.
I started interviewing people and really just slowly working on capturing everyone's story so that I could really get it right.
Was that process of unpacking all of that and going back and really being able to see from a grown woman's perspective what you thought you saw as a child? Was that cathartic for you?
Let me tell you, when you're revealing a secret you've kept, your whole life for decades, it takes steps and stages to, like you say, unpack it. So I had to get comfortable with the idea. I had to get my nerve up to interview certain people, like my childhood friend. We've been friends since 4th grade, Diane and I. And I sit her down and I do this long interview. She's talking about my mom, because that's the thing. People were happy to talk about my mother because she was unique and people loved her and they all wanted to talk about how good she'd been to them. So people thought at first I was just interviewing them about how my mom and what she was like. And she just talks on, and then I say to her, did you know that my mother was a number runner? And she went, what?
So
she was
nobody knew either?
stunned.
Oh, wow.
Stunned. And I got that a lot.
Yeah.
I got that a lot. And so
Was there a stigma about it?
Yes.
Okay.
There was. It was like two-pronged. On the one hand, it was illegal, I have to say, It was legitimate. It was really a legitimate business, but it did happen to be illegal.
Okay.
And so
there was no Powerball back then.
There was nothing. Believe it or not, there were no legal lotteries. So that seems crazy now because they seem ubiquitous.
Yeah.
But legal lotteries did not take over in all these different states until, the 70s. So there was that whole piece of it. You had to be careful and not tell anyone because it was not legal.
And the jealousy piece.
Well, you didn't want anyone to turn you in. You didn't want the authorities to find out. You didn't want to put your family in danger. You didn't want to get robbed. Any of that, right? And so people didn't talk about it. And you knew there were folks, maybe there were some religious people, for instance, who had felt some kind of way and they would judge you. So there was that kind of stigma. But at the same time, men, mostly men. My mom was like one of the only women.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Wow.
Mostly men. They were the pillars of the community, secretly. They were helping everybody. You needed a home loan, you had to go to the numbers man. Because you couldn't go to the federal government, you couldn't get an FHA-backed loan. The mortgage brokers and the home loan associations were not going to loan African Americans money to buy a home, believe it or not. So you went to the numbers man for that,
You talked a good deal about the redlining and putting it in historical perspective, how being in a cash-based business was actually putting you in position to help the community because you had more disposable income, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, people needed capital to start small businesses. They needed to get their kid out of trouble. Or they just, were trying to make ends meet. Maybe they were saying, can you help me send my son to college? There were all kinds of ways that numbers men were really helping. And the thing that happened a lot in Detroit that people don't know about, two big things. One is that Joe Louis was completely funded by the big numbers man in Detroit.
Wow.
Yeah, this man brought the numbers to the city. He was huge. And he decided, I'm going to make a black hero. He was calculated about it. And he was looking for someone talented. And when
was that the guy that funded all the...
Joe Roxborough, yeah. And he was like, hey, Joe Louis is a talented young man. I'm going to invest my numbers money that I've made into him. And he did everything for him.
Wow.
And helped to make him, a world-class, champion.
Wow.
And that was numbers money. And also, people didn't know this either. The NAACP and the National Urban League were fledgling organizations, barely getting by in every city. I have been on book tour now, and people often stand up and tell me about their particular cities. Baltimore, or like in Chicago, where that chapter was really in trouble until somebody, had to go see the numbers man and help them out. And that really happened in Detroit. It was like one numbers man in particular, John White, who said, you know what, I'm gonna just infuse this organization with cash because it's important for it to survive.
Love it.
And then along comes the civil rights movement. And that's the biggest chapter in the country in Detroit, the NAACP.
I did not know that.
Yep, it was the biggest one at one point. And, Detroit was a hotbed of civil activism. And so thank goodness that these numbers men saved those organizations because they were there, they were present, they were viable, they were healthy when we needed them.
Yeah.
So that's the part of being a numbers runner that people didn't know about because folks didn't talk about it. It was a secret. And so the good part was a secret too,
Yeah.
And you were asking me, what did people think my mom did?
Yeah.
We had a classic answer. I said, oh, my mother's in real estate.
Right. And you said that you didn't know that that was the code word
I
for
had no idea.
No, my mom's in real estate.
Yeah.
Folks are like, for real?
Right. I only learned that later. Oh,
Wow,
that's
cool.
code language for the numbers. But and she.
So what do people in real estate get called?
Yeah. And she did own some property, so it wasn't completely untrue.
That's true. Well, I mean, you have to put your cash somewhere, right?
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
So tell us the story about the yellow shoes. I thought that was so fabulous.
Yeah. I mean, I can do a reading, or I can just talk to you about it.
Yes,
Should I do that?
Sure.
Okay.
Because
All right.
I was wondering how to transition because this is only my second time doing this. Okay.
You're pretty good.
So
do you want a reading, guys? Yeah. Cool. It's like about 10 minutes. Is that?
That's
cool?
fine.
Okay. Yeah. Because it answered your question.
Yeah.
Do you guys know about the yellow shoes? Some do, yeah. I mean, the yellow shoes have traveled.
You still have them?
No. I mean, the story seems to be...
I feel like I need yellow shoes.
I know. If somebody was saying to me, you should wear yellow shoes on your book tour, I was like, I don't know.
Maybe you have to match the whole
That's
outfit.
a little much. But yeah, but anyway. All right, so here we go. So this, and yeah, I love reading this because it really makes me think about my mother in such a fond way that it's like this wonderful experience for me each time.
Yeah.
So thank you. I look for excuses to do it. I can't just be at home in my room, reading to myself.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
I would.
Well, maybe. So here we go. On a morning like most, I sit beside Mama at the dining room table, eating my bowl of sugar-frosted flakes and watching her work. She's on the telephone. Its receiver in the crook of her neck as she records her customers' 3-digit bets in a spiral notebook, repeating each one. The crystal chandelier blazes above. 542 for a quarter, 693 straight for 50 cents. Is this both races, Miss Queenie? Detroit and Pontiac? Okay. 388 straight for a quarter, 475 straight for 50 cents. 110 box for $1. Mama writes the numbers 110, draws a box around them, hesitates. I got customers, been playing 110 all week. Yeah, it's a fancy number. Oh, did you? What did you dream? He was a hunchback? Is that what the Red Devil Dream books say it played for? Now that I didn't know. I know theater plays for 110. Well, I can take it for $1. But since it's a fancy, I can't take it for more than that. You understand, Miss Queenie. What else? 684 for 50 cents boxed, 972 straight for $1. I find comfort in Mama's voice, in the familiar rhythmic recitation of numbers. I bring the bowl to my lips and drink the last of the sweetened milk before I rise and kiss Mama's forehead. She mouths bye-bye as I join my sister Rita, who's waiting on the porch. Together we walk 3 long blocks to Winterhalter Elementary and Junior High School, passing by the lush Russell Woods Park. I am a first grader. In class, I wait in line to show my teacher, Miss Miller, my assignment. We have had to color paper petals, cut them out, and paste them onto a picture of a flower. I like mine, as I have glued each one just at the base so that the petals now reach out into a pop-up flower. Miss Miller looks over my work, gives it 1 star instead of 2, and stops me before I can return to my seat. You sure do have a lot of shoes, she says. Last week, she asked what my father did for a living. And because I knew never to disclose the family business, I said, he doesn't work. She asked, well, what does your mother do? I froze. I'm not sure, I lied. I knew my mother was in the numbers, but I also knew not to tell that to anyone. I worried that my vague answer was the wrong one, but I didn't know a better response. No one had told me yet what I should say. Now, with Miss Miller staring at me, I look down at my feet, which are clad in, I still remember, Light blue patent leather slip-ons with lace trim buckles. A favorite pair bought to match a brocade ensemble that I have just worn for Easter. I nod, not knowing what else to do. Before you sit down, I want you to name every pair of shoes you have. She insists. Go ahead. There is no lightness in her voice. Anxious, I go through a mental inventory of the shoes that line the built-in rack in my bedroom closet. I manage to recall 10 pairs in various colors and styles. The black and white polka dotted ones with a bow tie, the buckled ruby red ones, the salmon pink lace-ups. 10 pairs is an awful lot, says Miss Miller. Her blue eyes fix on me with something I cannot name, but which I would now call disdain. And she orders me to take my seat. I can feel my classmates staring at me as I return to my table. Is it wrong to have so many pairs of shoes? Did my mother get them in a bad way? The next day in class, Miss Miller calls me back to her desk. I can smell the hairspray in her teased blonde bouffant. You didn't mention you had white shoes, she snaps. Indeed, I'm wearing a white version of the same pair I wore the previous day. I feel as though I've been caught in a lie, and I know that I've disappointed my teacher. I worry that I'll get in trouble at school or worse, at home. I'm sorry, I whisper. Miss Miller shakes her head in disgust and dismisses me with a wave of her hand. I return to my desk, trying hard not to look down at my shoes. I am ashamed of them. That evening, I tell Mama what happened, but I wait until after she has finished taking her customers' bets and before the day's winning numbers come out. I have already learned that the best time to tell Mama difficult news, something that could get you in trouble, is during that brief, expectant pause in the day. That's when Mama's least distracted and still in a good mood. She listens. And when I confess I forgot to tell Miss Miller about the 11th pair of shoes, her dark eyes flash with anger, and I fear a spanking. That's none of her damn business. She says, who does she think she is? Before I can feel relief that she's not mad at me, Mama says, get your coat and let's go. I do as I'm told. Mama throws on her soft blue leather coat, the color of the periwinkle crayon in my Crayola box, and together we slide into her new Buick Riviera. Are we headed back to school to confront Miss Miller? Thank God, no, as Mama heads south, away from Winterhalter Elementary. She soon turns onto 2nd Avenue, drives to the corner of Lothrop, and parks in front of the new Center building. There sits Saks Fifth Avenue. We enter through regal double doors, and I instantly fall in love with the store's marble floors and brass elevators and bright chandeliers. I feel lucky just being here. Mama takes my hand and leads me to the children's shoe department, where an array of options spreads before us. She points to a pair of yellow patent leather shoes. Those are pretty, she says. Perhaps the saleswoman looks at us askance, given how rare it must have been to see black people inside Detroit's upscale shops in the 60s, but I don't remember. What I do remember is how nonchalantly Mama opens her wallet, pulls out a $100 bill, and pays for the shoes, while the saleswoman looks at her the way Miss Miller looked at me. When we get home, Mama says, you're going to wear these to school tomorrow. And you better tell that damn teacher of yours that you actually have a dozen pair of shoes. You hear me? The next day, I wear my brand new shoes with a matching yellow knit dress. Wow. Nervous as I walk up to my teacher's desk, I announce, "Miss Miller, I have 12 pairs of shoes." She looks down at my feet and then levels those blue eyes at my face. "Sit down." Miss Miller never says another word to me. I feel her rejection, but I am also relieved. I no longer have to worry about what I wear to school or feel bad about my nice things. I feel both protected and indulged by Mama. Growing up, that's how it was for me and my 3 older sisters and my brother. We lived well, thanks to Mama and her numbers, which inured us from judgment. My mother's message to black and white folks alike was clear. It's nobody's business what I do for my children, nor how I manage to do it.
First of all, who is this lady? And then second, but that was a different time.
Yeah, definitely.
And the white gaze was, you know, that could be the difference between you having all those nice things and you not having a life.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, my mom took a risk.
Yeah.
When I look back on it, you know, from this perspective and having maturity, I realized, you know, that was a revolutionary act.
That's right.
That's what that was.
That's right.
You know, and at great risk. And then I realized when I was researching the book that, looking at the timeline, that was weeks, just weeks before Detroit's race riot.
Really?
What we call the uprising. Weeks. And let me tell you, racial tensions were high in that city for months before, you know, the uprising really erupted.
So what year?
So,
67?
67. 67.
Yeah, it was 67.
Yeah, I was in the first grade. And so that made it even more powerful for me. I thought, whoa, she was really taking a risk. Because that's exactly what that teacher was doing, right?
Yeah.
She was like, "Who do you think you are, little girl, little brown, little Negro girl?
With your fancy shoes.
With your fancy shoes. I don't have 10 pairs of shoes."
Right. But then on top of it, you lived in that neighborhood
Yeah.
that afforded you to be able to go to that school.
Right.
So that was a whole other thing.
Right.
The fact that you had that white teacher,
Yeah.
and I'm going to assume a classroom full of white kids.
It was actually, yes, and sort of mixed.
Okay.
A little mixed, starting to be a little mixed, because what was unique too about Detroit, you know, we got to live in that house because of my mom and her business, you know, running numbers.
She's a real liberal.
She's
But a lot of, you know, middle class blacks were starting to be able.
Yes, the doctors,
Right,
and
and even the postal workers and the people who were also like, you know, had good city jobs.
Yes.
They were, and working in the factories.
Yes.
It's progressive.
They were,
Progressive.
I mean, you know, the auto industry created the middle class.
That's right.
And so we saw that firsthand in Detroit, because there was such white flight that whites were leaving the city in droves, and they were selling their homes to black folks. Selling their nice homes to black folks.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I did not realize that there was such a kind of like a middleman process.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't buy your house directly from the bank. There was no such thing as are you saying that there were no mortgages given to
Well,
black families?
yeah. So basically, and I learned this from Ta-Nehisi Coates. When he did the case for reparations, that big piece for the Atlantic magazine, he looked at Chicago. Chicago, it was virulent. This idea of buying on contract. Because, you know, I since learned that a woman whose father was trying to represent a lot of those folks wrote a whole book about it. So it was, and that's part of what A Raisin in the Sun is about.
Uh-huh.
Yes, that's the genesis of that story.
I see.
Chicago, Lorraine Hansberry's father fought back hard and sued and everything over that issue.
Yeah.
So you see how it's all connected, our
Yes.
cultural stories,
Yes.
you know? But anyway, so when I read that in the article that he'd written, I was like, wait a minute, whoa, my God. I always knew my mother bought her house on contract. And what that means is you just have a direct contract with the seller. But I always thought she did it because she was a numbers runner and she couldn't show actual pay stubs and W-2s, etc. No. She did it because black folks could not get mortgages. They could not get, like, you know, sort of, you know, FHA-backed mortgages. So because they couldn't, they were considered high risk, lenders didn't have to lend to them. They could say, well, we can't lend to you because it's not going to be a backed mortgage, so we're not going to take the risk. And realtors were in on it too.
So they redline them.
And because redlining, they would say, well, this is a risky area. Anywhere a black family wanted to live. If a black family lived in that community, it instantly became redlined.
Which is insane because that created the whole cipher of
of
white
course.
families not wanting black families to live in their neighborhoods.
Exactly.
It was just.
And they were right. When white families would say, if a Negro family moves in, our property value drops, they were right.
Yeah.
They were right. Yeah. And because of the way, remember this, the U.S. government
Yes.
backed that policy. They created it and they enforced it. You know.
That's why gentrification makes me so mad.
I know. Because meanwhile, white working and middle class folks were getting these incredible low interest home loans so that they could become part of the middle class and buy their own homes.
And that's
You
why
know.
your mom was so revolutionary during that time.
Yeah.
Okay, so your mom won a big
Yes.
set of lottery or
Yeah.
whatever the case, and she actually had the money that she could have bought that house outright, but she didn't because she didn't want to.
Yeah, so she hit the number basically. What the same thing you would say today. Except you'd say I won the lottery. So she played a combination of her home address 788, and it came out. She had. We don't know to this day how much money
I love your
on
mom.
it because she never told. She just let the legend grow. It's amazing how I would interview people and they'd all have different amounts. Oh my God, it was
She won
$100,000
$5 million.
It was like, no, it wasn't. But okay. But she never told. But it was definitely enough for her to go out and start looking for a house and to basically enter into this arrangement with a white seller who said, I'll sell you my house directly. We'll have a contract. You'll put 30% down.
That was insane. I was like,
And,
who got what?
and you'll have this exorbitant interest rate. And this is how the contracts worked. If she missed one payment, he could take the house back.
Wow.
That's insane.
Yeah.
There were no protections.
No protections. And that happened all over the country. And sadly, people did get swindled out of their savings. This is why black folks would, they would team up and they would 3 and 4, families in one home, they're trying to save the house. Or everybody's working, so no one's ever home to be with the kids because everyone's trying to make enough money so that they can protect their little investment because they're already paying too much for it, right? Every month.
And any one thing that goes
and
wrong.
any one slip up, the house is gone.
Wow.
There were people who resold their houses 5, 6, 7 times because they would sell it on contract. You slip up, as someone said, you could repossess a house quicker than just like you could repossess a car. So, you missed your payment, the house is mine again. They go do it with another family.
Wow.
Yeah, they would turn that house over, money in that house.
Did she ever own the house? Did she ever pay it
Well,
off?
that's the thing. So she went into this arrangement with this man who she said at least was halfway decent. But the extra layer for her was when he got ready to go into this deal with her, he was like, no, your husband doesn't have steady work because my father was disabled, so he wasn't able to maintain a job in the auto factories. He's like, yeah, your husband doesn't have steady work and you're a Negro woman. She's like, but I have the money for the down payment. He's like, no, I can't sell it to you.
Right.
So she had to go find a friend who was willing to buy the house for her.
With her money.
With her money. With her money. A man who had been working in auto plants for a long time. He had migrated much earlier. He'd been in Detroit longer. He was like reliable. Somebody named Wallace Colvin. You know how I know? I saw the contract when I started doing the research. Yeah, I went down to the registry
So her
of deeds
name
and
wasn't
pulled the
never on the
contract. And I was like, what the? I mean, there it was. He was sold our family home to a man named Wallace Colvin, who, listen, it took almost 3 years before a new contract appeared with my mother's name on it. So for 3 years, never mind that she's worried because she's running this business, trying to maintain this household. Never mind that she's concerned about that revenue, but also I don't want to miss a payment because man over here can come back and take the house. And the one who bought it for her.
Yeah. She don't even own the house.
Yeah, who's to say one day you didn't just decide, you know what, it's mine.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot of trust.
That's
She
a
had to
lot of
trust him.
trust. She had to trust him. She had to trust him. Now, apparently, I mean, I don't think she would have entered into it with him if she thought there was anything untoward. And I was beginning to think about it. Was this a man who kind of did this for a living? Maybe he was somebody who was like, I got reliable credit.
Yeah, right?
You know, you give me a little money and I'll do that for you.
Yeah.
But I never heard talk of him. So he was not truly a family friend. Because I never heard of him.
And maybe she personally took care of him and said, hey, I'll give you this amount.
Oh, probably. She probably paid him to do it.
Yeah.
But you know, you do what you
still
have
a
to
big
do.
risk,
Because
yeah.
black folks wanted the most basic, fundamental symbol of a solid American dream life. They wanted to own their homes. So people did what they had to do. And my mom in particular, you know, to get that house.
These some resilient people.
Really. Really.
And then to not have that, to not carry that bitterness. In fact, to just put that energy back into.
Absolutely.
her
My mother
business.
was like, her line about him, his name was Mr. Prince. And because he would come every month to collect his mortgage in cash. The only white person in our house. Every month I would be like, it's Mr. Prince. And I would tense up. I don't know why. Because I was a kid. And I would look at him through the banister like I
you
didn't
had
trust
good
him.
sense.
Yeah. I mean, he would come and he would, when I look back, I'm like, why did that man just let her mail him a check?
He probably didn't trust it though.
And he was living in the suburbs. He would drive back to the city every month and get his little check from her.
He didn't trust it. And plus he was waiting on her to slip too.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the one slip.
And so that only happened, went on for 3 years?
No, I mean, she didn't own the house outright for many years.
Right.
But eventually, I mean, within 3 years, her name was at least on the contract. No, it took years. But she would always say, he didn't do me dirty.
Wow.
He didn't do me dirty. I mean, when we moved in, he pulled out the chimes
I read that.
that were
How
in the
petty
house.
are you?
That were in the house.
But I love your mom's energy because she's like, well, we gonna get some cuter chimes.
She did. She got some beautiful chimes that now are part of my, memory, oral memory of growing up. Because I remember how they would ding, dong, ding. They were very pretty. She hung them right over there in the little vestibule. But yeah, who rips out their
Somebody petty.
their chimes? But that was her attitude. Her whole thing was, I'm all about just doing for my family and getting those things that are going to make our lives better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was what do you think was your greatest lesson, having done all this research and getting to see your mom from a totally different lens?
Wow. And I learned a lot.
Yeah. Do you have a top 3?
I would say it's probably one.
Okay.
If I had to really narrow it down, the thing that got me, I knew it, but once I did all this research and wrote the book, it hit me hard. I was like, oh my God. My mother taught me that no matter what you do in life, you have to do it with integrity.
Yes.
And that's crazy because
Isn't that
again,
ironic?
let me just say this. What my mom did was illegal.
But she did it with integrity.
She did it with integrity. And that's the thing that blew me away. I was like, all these people who trusted her, all these people who could rely on her, all these people who knew she was honest. She was like, she had this serious moral fiber.
And generosity.
And generous, so generous. I would say that that's the second thing. If the first thing is whatever you're doing in life, do it with integrity. The second thing is, be generous. To whom much is given, much is expected,
yes.
And she loved it. She loved, and she also had a way of putting that when people would say, thank you so much, Fannie, because my mother was like a philanthropist. I mean, she was her own form of a pillar in the community because people came to her constantly, seeking all kinds of help, and she was very generous about giving it. Never with guilt, no guilt was ever attached. She never tried to make you feel like you owed her. She would just say to people, I'm just really happy that I'm able to do it. Because that was her attitude. Like, that means I'm all right. If I'm able to help you, then I must be doing okay.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's the other thing she taught me. Yeah.
Well, she got to carry on the tradition of the other number runners in the community,
Yeah,
I guess,
exactly.
because they had this cash business and they had all this surplus, and
Yeah.
it is kind of a tithe, maybe.
Yeah, and it seemed to me that she did it in her like woman's way.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
Whereas
come eat.
Right, exactly. Like they were more like build these structures, help people get their businesses going, you know, that kind of thing. She was more like, my doors are open, the food's on the stove, you know, you need a place to stay for the night, you can do that. You're trying to do something with your life, let me help you.
Yeah.
You want to go to school? Well, let me give you a little something to help you get started. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Do you notice the difference? Do you, having been in that kind of environment that's so welcoming, that's so open, that's so available, that's so, well, for lack of a better phrase, spiritually rich? You know what I'm saying?
I like that
Do you
phrase.
feel different about how the world is looking now?
It's a little stunning.
Yeah.
You know, it's hard because I grew up in such a sort of like, you know, warm and supportive environment. I was also the baby of the family, so I was definitely spoiled. You know, I was. But it was just out of love. You know, it wasn't that anyone, my mom always said, you're as good as anyone. You're better than no one, but you're as good as anyone. So, you know, it wasn't like we thought we were better. That wasn't it at all. It was just a sense that, well, yeah, you do support one another. That's what you do in a community.
Yeah.
That's what you're supposed to do. And now it just feels like we're in a different world. And I know that a lot of things have changed. I'm not saying we can go back to having them, you know, the numbers, but we lost a lot when we lost that really vibrant underground economy.
Yeah.
We lost a lot because people helped each other out and they looked out for each other. And those, and on a practical level, those dollars that were, you know, being generated from that business circulated throughout the community and turned over many times. What do we have like that now? You know, those dollars helped all kinds of people.
That's right.
If you had a business, it helped you, you know? And if you were basically just trying to like be an entrepreneur, then you knew that you had clients, you had customers because that money was there. Your beauty salon was going to be okay.
Yeah.
Because folks could come and get their hair done.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, all those things help keep a community going.
Yeah.
They do. They really do. And what's the equivalent today?
Yeah, it's this weird dynamic because I feel like, and agree with me or not, but I feel like when we were kind of relegated to our own little small pockets, we had to rely on each other. And then as we had room to branch out, it's almost like it watered down our ecosystem. And so I feel like, you know, there's a way to have both, but I feel like it's just either a lack of imagination or a lack of memory or whatever the case. Did you have any of those ideas when you were writing this book? As like there's a blueprint here?
I wish, you know. I don't. I think I felt just really nostalgic.
Yeah.
And I think I wanted to just document it because so many people weren't aware or they weren't feeling they could talk about it. Again, you know, going around the country and like doing events, inevitably someone will stand up and kind of testify and say to me, thank you, you know, for honoring this tradition and bringing dignity to it.
Yeah.
You know, because people hadn't been talking. They just weren't talking about it.
Yeah, dignity.
Yeah.
So, did you feel the parallel with I know they're different businesses, but I just feel like it's kind of the same thing. There's survival, there are ways of surviving and creating an entrepreneurial cash business, and I'm talking about weed right now.
Exactly.
And there's like a parallel to it right
Totally.
now, where, you know, the underground folks, listen, you're giving us nothing. We have to survive. We have to be able to feed our families, and, you know, all of these systems have been put in place that makes it very complicated for us to feed our families. So this is our business. This is our, you know, we gotta connect. Now, granted, you know, weed, I feel like it's just I don't know the difference, you know, but I just feel like all these men sent to prison.
I know.
And now
Petty crimes.
It's arbitrary.
And now it's legal. It's gotta be
Basically, it's
legal.
arbitrary. It's kind of like what your mom was saying.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, it's illegal because they said it was illegal.
Right.
And then it's like, oh, we get our cut of it? Okay. Now it's okay now.
Oh,
Now it's
clearly.
okay now.
I mean, Michigan was one example, but all these states looked up and they were like, there's millions and millions of dollars being made in this underground, numbers business.
Let's
So-
start a lottery.
Yeah, so let's legalize it
Yeah.
with the claim that was going to take the illegality out of it, that they were going to get the criminal element out of it, right? That was their claim.
But it
But
really,
really, it was about bringing that money into the
revenue.
state's coffers.
Yeah.
And it was more insidious than that. Their whole thing was they were able to sell it to the white folks in the suburbs and
Yes.
the rural areas because they could say, listen, this will help. These funds can go, we can
Fix
create an
streets.
education fund. And then that way your tax dollars don't have to go to support the inner city schools. Yeah, if you
I
support
did not
this
know
lottery-
that.
Oh yeah, that's how they sold it.
Yep.
That's how they sold it. It's called tax rebellion. That's how they sold it
wow.
across the country.
It is mind-boggling how much effort goes into white supremacy.
Oh yeah.
That's the best
Well,
way.
because it
And you know,
pays
it's
for
energy.
itself.
You have that's a, like creative flow that could go to like the world could be so much better, but it's like no, I really just want white people to be alright.
Yep.
And just listening
takes
to
a
the
lot of
numbers
energy.
that you're reading about. I remember we had this, I guess, organization at our job where everybody would put in like $100.
Like a susu?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. And then like when they get to your turn, you would get like maybe 2,000 because a lot of black people didn't have enough to like down payment on a home or something like that.
Yeah, no, that's like informal, like economic, cooperatives.
Yes.
Yeah, and people did that all over the country, all over the world, like in the Caribbean, right? In South America, people were about pooling their resources.
Yeah, yeah.
Because they couldn't go
What
to
did
the
you call it?
She called it a susu.
Some people call it a
The
susu,
I
and
don't
in
know.
different cultures have different names
Yeah.
for it. Like the Caribbeans have a name
I've heard
for
it.
it.
They have one in New
of this
York. I heard
before.
that there's something in New York that they do like that.
Yeah, I mean, they
Where everybody puts money in
Yes,
and
so
then
every time you get paid, you would put like $100 in, and then the whole, I guess they go around, and then when it's your turn,
everybody gets the key.
you get the pool. You get
That's
that
cool.
Yeah.
people are looking forward to it because when my turn comes, I'm gonna buy this new car that I wanted. I got my down payment money because we couldn't get loans.
I know someone who would pay for her daughter to get through school like that. And I have a god sister, she's Dominican, from the Dominican Republic, and her whole family does it. Yeah.
That's brilliant.
Yeah. It's about trust, and
Yeah.
I mean, you got 10 people. It depends on how big it is, but imagine if you're putting in your 100 every week, knowing that when your turn comes around, you could get like 2,000. That's totally worth it.
Yes.
That's totally worth it.
But everybody
it's
gets
like-
the same amount.
Yeah,
Everybody.
it's like a banking system.
That's cool.
It's like an investment club.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but dealing in cash. That's the
Right.
other thing. 'Cause you couldn't rely on
starting
that.
this now.
Oh yeah. And I have another friend who's starting she created a whole podcast around alternative economic, sort of like, structures. And her first podcast was on this.
I need to know what that is.
Susu. Yeah, because
this is a whole
this guy from Nigeria, he, being young, wants to create an app to do the susus through the apps.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not that smart.
And then
That is.
you pull right from your bank, and you keep records. Yeah. His mother is like, that's crazy. But that's
No,
what
it's brilliant.
That's what he wants to do. Yeah. Because you got to start creating new models.
Because you remember
That's
the
what this
credit,
was.
black people, our credit wasn't as good.
And then how did you
How do
establish
we
credit?
get credit?
You couldn't establish credit.
Yes.
And still, I'm looking
And
for
in a lot of ways, playing the numbers was about that. It was playing the numbers. People enjoyed the whole process of betting. And sometimes it was like 50 cents, $1. It was rare for people to put major money into it. That would be someone with a gambling problem, and my mother would not have them as a customer.
Oh, so she
Oh yeah, she was
Pick and
like, you know
chose.
what? Now she'd be like, Miss Angel, now you're not using your rent money, are you? She's like, we can't do that. We can't do that. Yeah, it's all about disposable income.
Yeah,
But
that's your extra.
also, it was a way to say, in a way, it's like I need a windfall, and people did hit. And that extra cash would help. And then they would share it.
Well, what I always wondered is, how did they come up with the winning number? Like, did somebody make that winning number up?
Yeah.
Wasn't it the horse
Yes,
races?
it was, and it was,
That's
you
when
know,
it was here.
Yep. Yeah, like every state had their own system, but most of them use the horse races. They basically took the racing forms from the various tracks, and based on, you know, each of those sort of races, you know, first in show, second, third, fourth, there'd be winners, and you take those calculations and sort of you take those numbers and create this convoluted calculation. Yeah, so you can figure out
So
the
do you have to have an
3-digit.
advanced degree in calculus to figure out?
I mean, the big numbers men were the ones who had their you know, employees figure out those calculations so that they could
Algebras.
all agree on the winning number.
So yeah,
It
my
couldn't be
cousin
so
uncle picked these numbers. I'm gonna say it was 1,
There
2,
had to be
3.
some
no
sort of
way
trusted-
because it was, you know, you had to wait till the races were actually, you know,
Completed.
run and completed, and you could see the, you know, they would actually post what those winning races were. And so those were actual numbers no one could mess with. But the calculation used, they basically would take the number to the left of the decimal for one race, and then the number to the left of the decimal for another race, and build their actual 3-digit winner that way.
And everybody was in agreement on
Right.
what the
And then the
numbers.
word would go out, this is the official number.
Okay.
Was there ever an element, a fear element for your mom
Yes.
that you were aware? Like, was there like the mafia mob, the Italian mob that wanted
Yeah.
her away and out of the business? And
Yeah. So the thing about the numbers is that it was founded and created by a black man in Harlem.
I did not know that
Yes. In fact, there were other forms of betting before that. There was something called policy, you know, that was completely white run and controlled. Completely. They employed black people, but they ran it all. Well, this man, his name was Casper Holstein, he came up with this idea. And the way he came up with it is they had this thing in the New York papers back then, a precursor to the stock market, you know, figures, and they called it the clearinghouse. And every day he noticed that those numbers were different. It was just like how they sort of, for whatever reason, printed the numbers for all these financial institutions, sort of whatever it was for. But they printed it in the paper and they called it the clearinghouse numbers. And he was like, he saved like a year's worth of newspapers. Yep. He was a porter for you know, a Midtown store because he had a really great high school education from, you know, Brooklyn Tech, but he couldn't find a decent job being a black man, so he was a porter, but he was so smart. And he saved those papers and he was like, okay, I'm on to something. If I just take these last 3 digits every day that change all the time, I can use this as the winning numbers for a new system that I'm going to call the numbers.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Now, question for you: when somebody don't hit it, does it roll over?
No, it's not a sweepstakes. It's not like like the lotto. No.
If somebody doesn't hit it, they
No.
keep the money.
No, the way that works is you only get what you put on that number. And so if you said, let's use 788, you're like, I'm going to play 788 for $1. And the odds, the payouts are 500 to 1.
Wow.
So if you win, you get $500. And if you don't, you get nothing. We keep your dollar. So now that's different from Lotto and Mega Millions, where the pool, you
just
know,
keeps
the
rolling
pot just
over.
keeps growing and rolling. That's a
Okay, got it.
sweepstakes
Okay.
type
Yeah.
Okay.
lottery game.
And you guys make money off of the sheer numbers of people
She
that work.
made money through volume.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if
she
nobody
had
don't hit,
yeah,
it just
right.
okay.
I mean,
It
there
just-
are
You keep the pot.
so many different ways that a number can fall.
Yeah.
I mean, the odds to get a 3-digit is 1,000 to 1. It's not that easy. And there's 600 different combinations, you know? So it's not that easy. And so you've got a ton of people playing all kinds of numbers with you, and you're collecting the proceeds based on what they play. You played $5 worth. You played $25 worth. Well, that's just money coming in. And that's her pool. So that when someone does hit, she has the money to pay it.
Wow. Got it.
And let me tell you, this is no joke. I'm sure it's true in Pennsylvania too. In New York, you could go to the corner bodega and you can say, I'm not playing Powerball or Mega Millions. I want to play numbers.
Oh, they still do it?
It's called Numbers, the legal lottery. And it's the exact same game.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, they still do that. Yeah, they do it every day.
Right,
Yeah,
Yeah, they still do it.
daily.
In New Jersey, they do it daily. Daily numbers.
Daily Numbers.
Yeah.
It's called Daily Numbers. They didn't even
Yeah.
change it. And in Detroit, in Michigan, when they decided to legalize the numbers, they just stole the whole system whole cloth. Even their ad campaigns were, every day's a play day.
Oh, wow.
Play your home address.
And
Play your
these folks
address.
are aware that a black man invented it?
Do they care?
Do they care? Like that's, and you can't. It's not like he could have copywritten it or.
No.
But see, that's deep because like for instance, this white guy came up with mortgage-backed securities, and what happened was he was married to somebody that was on Wall Street, and then they got a divorce. He met up with somebody else he knew, and then one of these investment bankers, they gave him $35 million
What?
for coming up
But coming up with the idea.
with mortgage-backed
And
securities.
look what this one man created that we are talking about
Yeah.
today. He created in the early 20s, early 1920s.
And he didn't get nothing from that.
Well, he became a big numbers man because he created this idea. He was the first big numbers man. And he lived well for a while, but ultimately he was arrested. Yeah, and he died poor.
I'm constantly talking about restorative justice because it's like all of these things. It's like
Crazy. And now the states across the country are offering the same game. Yeah, except you're paying taxes on that. And those multi-millions of dollars are going into the sort of general fund, for the state budgets to close the gap. That's not what's going on.
oh, that's what they're calling it
That's
now.
what they claim. No. Yeah, so it's really something. The other thing I would say to you guys too that I learned in the research is that lotteries used to be legal in the U.S. Did you guys know that? Because I didn't. Yeah, lotteries. Well, all this stigma around gambling and playing these numbers, that was a deliberate association with black folks.
Wow.
I found newspaper articles that would blow you away from 1903. The Coon Row. Yeah. Like this association with gambling and degeneracy and lack of character in black folks.
What do you call it? The Coon Row.
Oh yeah, I saw.
Those were names.
R-O-W? Coon Row.
R-O-W, yep. So, but when the 13 colonies were in existence, they were cash strapped. But they needed capital improvements. They needed roads and bridges. They used lotteries, legal lotteries,
Wow.
to fund their, to develop their communities and to fund their projects.
So all of these community pooling of resources has been in
Always.
existence for a while.
Exactly.
And it's just this particular mind wave of making some of it bad and some of it good. It was a marketing ploy.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
And everyone was in on it, including the media.
Wait,
You should see.
You gotta think about who says something is bad and who says it's
Exactly.
good. That's the whole point. It's kind of like back in the day, it was illegal, right, for these coal miners to strike, but it was legal for the owners of the company to kill them if they do it,
Exactly.
right? So it's
that's crazy.
so these laws is arbitrary. You can't just listen to every single law and say, oh, well, it's the law and this means this. You gotta use your own brain and say, well, should I really be following this or not?
Yeah, I mean, my mom used to say that. She'd say, whenever white folks want to get away with something, they just create a law to do it.
Exactly.
Listen.
She was not fooled. So she taught us, don't you feel any shame?
Exactly.
None.
Right.
Because this is legitimate.
It's
Right.
legitimate.
It's legitimate. Maybe it's illegal, but it's legitimate.
Right.
And she came up from the South. My mom was born in Nashville. Her grandfather was born into slavery. So she was not in any way unclear about what was possible and what folks were capable of doing. And her whole thing was, you need to understand that they don't get to be bootleggers and then turn that into some respectable
Legitimate business.
Yeah.
I'm Joseph Kennedy. I'm going to make sure my sons go into politics. You were a bootlegger, Joseph Kennedy. And that was illegal until they decided that, maybe we shouldn't make alcohol illegal. But So where's the sort of sense of shame around that? None. There's no shame. Nobody ever makes those associations.
No, you look back at them now and you say, oh, they were a great entrepreneur.
Exactly.
They came up with blah, blah, blah.
Exactly.
They pulled themselves up by their bootstraps.
Right, but you see the double standard, so you
Yes.
have to be really careful. And I have people sometimes who say to me when I'm out talking to different folks, you know, like just talking about the book, they'll say, well, I don't know, I mean certain people, but you know, gambling, I mean, in the end, don't you think that's kind of wrong because you're taking advantage of people's addictions and exploiting them? And I just say to him, I just say to people, it's really interesting to me that there is sort of no stigma around, let's say, betting at a racetrack.
Yeah, or going to the Borgata, going to the casino.
Exactly. Or going to the casino
we're
or
going to
Vegas.
Vegas.
Or, and this is one that gets me, Catholics bingo night.
Bingo. Just a bingo period.
In the church. Basement. No shame, no shame.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, or football.
Why is there no stigma around that? Because gambling's gambling. Gambling is gambling.
You buy your lottery tickets every week, or every day.
Right. So you got to be careful,
Yeah.
you know, when you see how certain things have been like cast, and ask yourself why. And I'm just grateful I had a mother who was clear that we could tell nobody, but it was not a shameful secret. Like she was very distinctively clear on that. Thank goodness, because I didn't grow up with any shame.
Good. Is your mom still living?
No.
No.
Did she have to give you or one of your sisters that did not tell you not to?
You know, we were really good.
Okay.
I mean, I had one slip up. And I was terrified. I write about it in the book. I was like, oh my God, I've said too much. And my sister was like, you are in trouble. I mean, she made it
Mom
worse.
will get you.
She's like, I'm sorry, I can't help you. You're in trouble. Just sit in this room till Mama gets home. And I was like, I'm ashamed to admit this. I pulled the Bible off the shelf. I was like, what can I read to help me? Oh my God, help me, God. I was terrified. And it's so amazing that my mother came in my room, sat down next to me, and she said, you know you shouldn't have done that, right? And I was like, she's like, you're not going to do that again, are you? And she's like, okay. And she just got up and left. And later she said to me, I know you know how to keep a secret in your belly. That's how she put it. She's like, you know how to keep a secret. She's like, you were young and you didn't mean it. It was a slip up. But if she had come down hard on me, you know, I would have felt so differently. This might not be this book, you know?
Yeah.
Because I would have felt like, how dare, that wasn't fair for me to have to try to hold that. But I didn't feel that way. We all felt like we were protecting her.
Yes.
And that was important.
Yes.
And that was worth it.
Right.
And I never had an urge to tell. Because I wonder about this. Does anyone really like get excited about saying what their parents do for a living? No. It wasn't a hard secret to keep. It really wasn't.
I was nervous with the teacher because I felt, you know, I felt her. Oh, I feel like a lot of this really is about jealousy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so like when you look at how things play out even today, it's really just about jealousy. And it's like when you're talking about being socialized for so many generations that black people ain't nothing. And then, you know, if you look out historically when the uprisings happened, it's been ingrained in so many people that black people ain't nothing. And then when they have something, and sometimes more than you have, well, this can't be true because they're nothing. Aren't they nothing? It looks like they got more than me. And so
That's
it's
not
like,
right.
Yeah, that's not right. And so like I see these pockets of things and I feel like it's complicated because I feel like part of it is we can have better conversations about these things, but I feel like also in order to shift this up, you're no better than anybody, but you certainly as good as it. You know what I'm
You're
saying?
as good as anyone.
Yeah, I feel like white people need to get that memo. You know what I'm saying? Do you get what I mean? Because I feel like a lot of what goes on in the world right now still around race is about that. It's that one thing, that arrested development that has not been.
And resentment.
Yeah. And why? Why do you feel like you need to be better than, you know what I mean? is doing nothing.
Because they know you've worked twice as hard.
Yeah. By necessity.
Right. But
Yeah.
I think that breeds envy. You work twice as hard, you're
Yeah.
really good at it, you've survived, you've thrived.
Yeah.
Huh. You know?
Yeah.
Or as a friend said to me once, he was like, I'm so depressed I can't find a job. I'm like, oh, it'll get better, Nico, it'll get better. He's like, Bridgett, I'm a white man.
It doesn't.
This is pathetic. He's like, if I can't get a job, that is just pathetic. And I was like, you have a point there.
Yeah.
You know, he's like, the world is set up for me.
Yeah.
No, seriously. He was just
Well,
like,
at least he's thoughtful about
yeah,
it.
he was like, this is just horrible. I should be thriving.
Yeah. He could start numbers. Start a weed
And
business.
then, you know, I was thinking about it, I was like, and you're going to be all right.
You're gonna be alright.
You're going to be all right. Because you're going to be able to fail up.
Right.
So it's all, and he's fine now. Yeah, anyway.
Are there any final thoughts that you have for us about this journey for you?
I just think
Do you think
that,
Mom is looking down?
Yeah, you know, I've been asked, do you think she would be really excited and pleased, you know, about the book? And I think she'd just be proud of me. I really do.
Yeah, that's the tone I
It's
got
interesting.
about it.
She was really self-possessed, you know, very confident, but there wasn't a lot of that sort of showy ego. Like, she didn't need you to, like, fawn over her or give her a lot of attention. She was really
When's her birthday? What's her
May
sign?
9th.
Oh, Taurus.
All
Yes.
the way. Totally.
That makes all the sense.
Yeah.
I always ask people when their birthday is. When's your birthday?
Totally. Mine's May 22nd.
Uh,
So right Gemini. Right there.
Gemini.
There you go.
Gemini.
Yeah, so that's the thing. I think she would just be proud of me.
Yeah.
And I'm not at liberty to give any details as much as I want to, but I will say that it looks
Movie.
yeah.
Yeah, I was about to say that. Also,
Yeah.
somebody like Spike Lee or somebody should just pick
And I
this thing up.
cannot wait to be able to say
Yes.
more, but there looks like
Yeah,
there's a strong possibility.
yeah,
That's good, because yes.
yeah. We'll support that. That's something-
That's
yeah,
just, you would support that?
Yeah, definitely.
Let's get
It's
a susu
fun.
together.
Right.
Yeah, make sure.
It's fun to think about who would play her, you know. I play that game sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's hard.
Who?
No,
It's kind of
I
hard.
know who would play her. Gabrielle.
I knew you were going to say Gabrielle.
She was very interested.
Yeah, Gabrielle
She
should
actually
play.
reached out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Gabrielle.
But not,
Gabrielle.
but actually she has her own company and everything.
Yeah, yeah.
So not so much for herself, but I thought about her.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I
But you know
thought
who
this
I've
year.
been thinking about lately is
Who?
Regina King.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have no idea. But you know, it's just fun to think
Oh,
about.
Regina. Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
227.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you went way back.
She
just won an Oscar.
She was like 12.
She just won an Oscar.
Right. She is good and grown. He said two. That's it. Your
Hey,
last
listen,
reference.
I'm old school.
You are old
Yes.
school.
Yeah.
He went way back.
Yeah, I'm looking at Regina. Regina's like 40 some years. Regina's young. So I'm looking at her like, okay. I grew up watching Regina. So.
Yeah. No, I like her. I think it's a hard role because my mom she was.
I visualized her being tall though. Was she tall? She wasn't.
No. I know, because I have this like photo. I have some photos in here, and I have one of her driver's license. And my editor was like, "What? 5'1"?"
Yes, I visualized her
Yeah.
being like 5'9".
No, she was. Yeah,
Now, did she have a southern accent because she was from Tennessee?
she had certain words.
It really does say 5.
Yeah, 5'0".
It says
and a half.
5.5.
Yeah,
Wow.
and I'm like, was she really that short? I think that's inaccurate.
Mm-hmm. He just looked at her and was like,
He just guessed.
Right.
She wasn't quite that short. I think he just guessed. I tell you, people.
I have one question before you leave.
Mm-hmm.
So, don't take this the wrong way, but since you had all of these fine clothes and shoes and all of this, did you
What
get a
happened?
lot of self-hate, like for people in your own race, like just coming against you, like your friends, your like people?
That's a great question.
I mean,
I have to tell you, no. And I think it's because it's hard to explain how unique Detroit was at the time. first of all, it's one of the few majority black cities that actually had, at the time, 2 thriving economies. You had the auto industry and you had Motown. And,
Oh, that's right.
Motown artists were our royalty, but they lived among us.
Yeah, you
know?
said Diana Ross lived around the corner.
Yeah, I mean they were there, and everybody had a story of one of them living near them, right? And so that kind of creates this sort of sense of what's possible. So we were accustomed to seeing fine things around us,
right.
you know. And again, those folks, you could work in the auto plants, and if you did overtime, you made some good money.
You can buy more shoes.
Yeah, you made good money, and so you could put your family in a nice home, and if you chose, you could buy some nice clothes, you know. And then there was this other thing going on. You guys know what boosters are? Yeah.
What's that?
Yeah.
Lips.
Yeah. So that was another little
Like
underground
taxis, right?
economy.
Oh, the cars.
Like,
No.
No?
Like they call them hacks in
Selling
Philly.
hot product, hot clothes.
Oh, that's what you're talking about? Oh, the stuff that fell off the truck?
Yeah,
Oh,
boosters
yes.
would sell hot clothes, and so that's how a lot of people were dressing nice too. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
we're clothes like a different, nowadays clothes are a lot, but clothes were different, weren't they? It's like
It was relative.
Economy, yeah, you made
Oh, that's
you
true.
made
It was all relative.
I mean,
relative, yeah.
it's relative.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
if you shopping at Saks, or if you're shoplifting at Saks.
Listen.
You know, but with Detroit though, was it in it like a lot of people migrating from the south? Was it like a melting pot type of, hey, they're from Louisiana, these were from Alabama, this is this.
Yeah, because apparently you can really track where people end up based on the railroad line. So a lot of people from like Tennessee is kind of directly below Michigan. And Mississippi, a lot of people from Mississippi ended up in Chicago. You know, a lot of people from Tennessee ended up in Detroit, in Michigan. So, yeah, that was the thing. It's like they're big country towns in a lot of ways, these northern cities. Now, the East Coast, living in Philly was very interesting for me, having come from Detroit, because it was such a different place. It was sort of the same kind of people, but not really. And the difference was, black folks have been in Philly for generations.
Yeah.
And they will remind you that they have been. They're like, who are your people? So it's different. It wasn't quite that same thing with the migratory kind of path, where a lot of people in Detroit were
Somewhere else. Yeah.
from down south. And they had relatives that were still down south, so you had that back and forth that was happening. I used to spend summers in Nashville, that kind of thing. And so it created a certain culture. They brought their ways with them. So my mom cooked Southern food, Now, of course, there were Detroiters who had been there for generations, black folks, but a lot of them were part of that great migration. And that creates a certain kind of way, a kind of community, certain kind of feel in the city. So, yeah.
Any other questions?
I've just been talking. You guys are amazing.
I'm just gonna do a statement on it. I'm like at home right now. I feel like I'm on the couch. It is like a pleasure.
Friday nights.
I'm being
Friday night at
like,
the lounge, 7 to 10. That's what I do.
well, I'll be there, but definitely. But for both of you, both of you ladies are doing an excellent job. First of all, with bringing us home to the roots of it all, and that's missing a lot now.
Yeah.
Is and you know what I'm hating? The trendy. They trying to make it trendy now, to be connected to your roots and things like that. It's kind of getting gumbo souped in with it being a trend and not being the actual roots, and it's being like this souped up culture. And I think we are, well, I'm 33, but my generation on down, I think we're missing the point. Not me, but I think we're missing the point. We're missing the point of that our roots and our history has everything to do with our future and our present.
That's right.
And I think that we're missing the point that we need to be honored and humbled to get reacquainted with the roots instead of being arrogant and trying to change things and trying to act like we have made something new. And we haven't. It has always been around. It has always been in our guts. It has always been on our skin. Is that this rich history, this proud history that we have as being Pan-African or African Americans in this America. Like, we brought this culture to America for it to feel soulful and feel worth something. So I don't know, this is more of a statement, is that I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you too, and all of us in here, because the room should be packed. And I'm irritated by that.
Yeah, it should be.
No, it will be, because I want you, if you can, if you're available, to come on my show. And we're just, keep talking. Because part of it is conversation. I feel like we aren't having rich conversations.
Yes.
Like, we're not sitting around tables.
We having scroll conversations.
Right.
Swipe.
That's right. And we're not we're not allowed to disagree with each other in any rich way where we can learn something. You know, that's not part of our culture. We're in very, very fragile cancel culture right now, and that's everybody. You know, it's very ego driven. It's not spiritually literate. You know, we're not respectful of each other's points of view. And life is an elephant. Based on your proximity to whatever part, that's how you experience. And I feel like having these rich discussions about our parents and their parents, the good, the bad, the ugly. You might have got your feelings hurt because your mom had trauma as mine did, you know, but it might not be our fault. Right. But it's our responsibility to synthesize as best we can and write these books and tell these stories so that the next generation has roots to grow from.
You talk to a lot of people about a lot of young people about your book. What do they think about your book?
They're surprised and stunned about the things they didn't know. You know, I think that's the thing that's been consistent that I'm hearing from folks. They're like, why didn't I know this? You know, like the other part of that story about lotteries in the 13 colonies is that slaves were able to play the lottery too back then. And one slave in particular, Denmark Vesey, who was famous because he went on to lead a slave revolt. I mean, he was executed for it. But he also founded the AME church. That church, the one I'm talking about, you know, the one where you know what happened. He helped to found that church. But more importantly, he played a lottery. He won. It was $17.99. That was a year. He bought his freedom with the proceeds from that lottery ticket. Wow. $1,500.
That's how much he cost.
That's how much he cost. That's what he won. He bought his freedom. And then he went on to be this very instrumental figure in African-American, in history, in American history. But also, the other part of that story is, after people like him actually won these lotteries, the powers that be said, this is too much equality. This is creating wealth equality. And what was their response? They decided to ban lotteries. And they made them illegal. Wow. So that's important to know when you talk about the numbers. And that was this illegal underground operation. Well, there's a tradition here. There's an American tradition of lottery play and an American tradition of banning it for racial reasons. Yeah. That just repeated itself.
Yeah. But there's a parallel here, what you were talking about, how you were talking about in this, you said it was legitimate work, but it was illegal. And there was a point that I was trying to make. There was like a rich connection that's here about how we view things. Yeah. And how we allow ourselves to view things based on some arbitrary morality clause that we have. Yeah. And I'm talking about, you were saying that because you were keeping your mom's secret, you didn't get to tell your children about her at all. Right. But that's the same thing. Like, I think that's part of the separation that we're feeling here. Like, because, you know, they say, like, when you go numb, you can't feel anything, even the joy. But if you ban this kind of, this rich tradition of us pooling our resources, you create wealth gaps for everybody.
Exactly. And that's why people would stand up and testify. Yeah. And they would say, it was like, oh my God, she's saying it's okay, because for the first time, maybe ever, people were hearing me on NPR talking about the numbers. So imagine somebody who grew up with that in their history, right? Saying, oh my God, am I hearing this publicly without shame and judgment? That's the piece.
And then using the church and religion to kind of hammer in, it's bad. It's bad.
Exactly.
It's bad.
And they knew it wasn't. Their visceral experience was one in which they knew those folks stepped up and helped in the community. The other piece, I'm listening to you and I'm thinking about how, you know, when folks would come to my mom's house to play their numbers, that was social time.
Yeah, it was.
People were coming by. They trusted her. They admired her. They wanted to be in her presence. They wanted to sit down and just talk. So
in your gorgeous home.
In our home.
I love how you said, and this is we say this about, you know, our ministers or whatever. That's the excuse why they can get Bentleys and whatnot. Well, you can't trust somebody, like you don't buy a shirt from a naked person.
Right. You want to make sure they look like they are thriving. Yeah. And you want to do business with someone who seems to be doing well.
That's right.
She understood that. And so she knew that it was not just that she loved beautiful things, that it was a sort of symbol of her own success and a way of saying, I want you to trust me because you can respect.
It legitimized it.
Yes.
That I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Yes.
That I know what I'm doing.
So they came to the house is immaculate, it's amazing. They're like, okay, this is legit.
Yeah.
If we win, we are going to get paid out.
Right. This is the
awesome.
real thing going on here. Yeah. But the communal piece, I loved my mom's customers, and they were from all walks of life. That's the other thing. We don't have that anymore.
Ever any white people?
No. But from all walks of life, you know? So that I feel like black folks, we don't have enough of that in our lives now, where we're just dealing with people from everywhere, all kinds of people, like we used to. And that was so.
And there was dignity in all kinds of work,
absolutely.
though. Yeah. Nowadays, we have a really weird relationship with work. If it's not this flossy thing that looks good on Instagram, well, then you're not legitimate.
Yeah.
You're not working hard enough, and I feel like that's. We're like, even when we're networking, what do you do?
Right.
It's not like, who are you? How are you? Are you okay? Like, how are we connecting? It's what you do.
Yeah. So
What's your drive?
Yeah. I don't really talk about that in the book that much, but the more that I am in conversation with people about it, the more I am thinking it was an ecosystem that we lost. And it's a really good question. I want somebody to figure out, maybe talk about or try to come up with answers of what we can create that replicates that.
Yes.
Yeah, that sort of like dynamic, because it was a healthy one.
Now, did she save some of this money? Did she teach you guys about saving? Was she stacking some of the money up?
The problem with this kind of business is that it's always about making sure you have enough that you saved up in case someone hits. And so if they do, then you're starting over, because basically they are taking, it's possible that they could take her reserve and then she has to build it up again. So it was like that. That's the only thing, fluctuating. I tell people we fluctuated between, you know, sometimes we felt really upper middle class. Sometimes we were solidly middle class. Sometimes it was like, ooh, dipping down into a little lower middle.
Like any entrepreneur.
Exactly. It's
So
like,
one minute
you
you eat
know,
steak and lobster, the next minute you eat tuna.
no, it never got like that.
No, but I'm just.
No, what it meant was, you know, just that.
First of all, she said no.
No.
And she said no so hard, like it was like, no.
She was too resourceful for that.
We never had tuna.
If we were having lobster, it was lobster the whole time. Thank you.
Delmonico steak for everyone. Yeah. But in terms of having a safety net, though, that's difficult.
But she made sure that house was paid for.
Oh yeah, she
won't
care
play
of
with that house.
Yeah. And her whole thing was, I'm doing this so you don't have to. So take advantage of every opportunity, because it's not going to be forever, you know. And so that was really hammered into all of us. I took her seriously, you know, I really did. And I understood. I was like, I'm going to Spelman College because my mother is running numbers, so I can do that. And I can graduate without $1 of debt. You know, that's a gift. So I need to take advantage of that.
Exactly.
Right? So, and that made her so happy. That was the point. That was the point of it all, you know? So, yeah.
I'm doing this so you don't have to.
I'm doing this so you don't have to.
So did all your sisters get secondary education?
Everyone got an education. Yeah.
Yo,
Yeah.
that was gangster, right?
Yeah.
We're looking at it right now like.
The whole Susu system, though.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
We've been trying. This is my husband, but my name is Gina. Hi.
Hi.
But we've been trying to do that because we're entrepreneurs, and we like if he. And then I'm telling him, listen, I don't want you with a job.
Right. Job.
Your nourishment is to nourish the family. That's why you are here. And whatever by any means necessary for us to flourish in our business, we're going to do so you don't have to. And it's the same thing for me. But when I presented that whole, I didn't know it was called Susu. I'm totally thinking, listen, if I can get 10 people together to out of their money, $25, I even went to $5 because people was like, please, $25 is just too much. It got that bad. And I'm like, so we can create a system, because this is when I got kicked out, because I'm hella black right now and probably forever, because I was doing a system where entrepreneurs, creatives, just people, just black people, we can start our Black Wall Street again. We can do this thing again, but we need a building where we're creating this stuff, where we're being resources for each other. So I'm like, listen, but we need money to do it. I'm not talking about the WeWorks. I didn't got kicked out of WeWorks because it was too many brown faces and black faces.
Really?
Period. The businesses loved us. Northern Liberties. The businesses loved us. They were bringing over. I had about 200 black females there. We were power talks, everything. Didn't even want us no more. They stopped even having events on Saturdays because we were there.
No, they kept having it.
They kept having events. I'm sorry,
The
but
white
not
folks was
for
having
the white
events.
folks was. So we said, well, we're going to stand up and do something about this. And that wasn't the only facility. And I'm just calling them out. So we said, but our people didn't understand the system that we were trying to create. They just thought, oh no, this is just going to benefit you. And I'm like, how is it benefiting me? For 8 years, we've been giving free events for resources. Like, we're taking from my home. You guys, I'm just asking you to come and just listen. And so I think my question is that how do you get people to believe in themselves, first of all, and then believe in creating a system like a Susu again? Because I don't even know if that even exists.
Well, I think part of it is that we have to kind of step away from the evangelical thing where we're trying to convince people who need to be convinced and focus on people who are already ready.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Put your energy towards the people that are into it.
You don't need that many.
That's right.
To start.
That's right. So like the way my gauge is, if we can have a conversation and we're interested in doing this, then we can work together. And then more people that are interested, we can work together. But when you have to do a lot of explaining to people, they're not ready and just, they'll get there.
Yeah.
But that's not your work. You know what I'm saying? Just focus on the people that want it. And then you're less stressed. You know what I'm talking about?
Exactly.
Focus on people that want to put
let
in
everyone
$100.
come in who has a goal.
That's right.
Like
Yeah.
somebody who's wanting to start a business or go back to school, or help a relative. Like, I feel like when people have a goal,
Yeah.
they're more determined. You're getting the kind of people who are focused in the way you
That's
need
right.
them to be. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But they are everywhere. You do a little research on it.
Okay.
And we got Instagram, we got Facebook, they're all different kinds of things. You will find people. And right, you just need critical mass. You don't need 1,000 people. Because if you start with 10 and people start talking, girl, you should get in on Now, you know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's exciting. It's exciting.
So you want to do pictures and sign books
Sure.
and that kind of thing?
Oh, books. I just kept you guys so long. I'm so sorry. Books, right. You got to sign books. Yes.
Yeah.
Pictures? Yes.
Yeah.